Don't mind me, just checking out my latest invention, the Idea Board. Let's see what my dart lands on. I was specifically hoping I wouldn't hit that one.
Portable game consoles have existed for a very long time. One of the first portables was Auto Race by Mattel in 1976.
Oh, yay!
However, that only had one game. Today we're going to talk about portable game consoles with interchangeable cartridges only. The very first one was the Microvision in 1981, but it only had 12 games. Many early portables are like this and have multiple games.
I mean, technically they aren't wrong, 6 games is multiple games.
The Game Boy. Releasing in 1989, it was revolutionary at the time and it's still pretty cool today. A lot of its games are still really fun. Mario Land and its sequels, Link's Awakening, Pokemon, Kirby's Dream Land 2, Mega Man. The Game Boy had many great games. The problem, however, is the screen. First of all, it doesn't have a backlight, which makes this thing irrelevant to use in any lighting condition other than completely perfect. If you have a Game Boy Pocket, the screen is grey, but if you have an original Game Boy, it's green. That brings me to the Game Boy revisions. The original Game Boy looks like a brick, but the Game Boy Pocket, released in 1996, is much thinner. Exclusive to Japan, there was also a Game Boy Light, which had a backlight. Why this wasn't released anywhere else is a question that will remain unanswered. Nintendo sees the Game Boy Color as just a revision. I don't. It just has way too many exclusives to really be a revision. Nevertheless, according to Nintendo, it's a revision. The next console is the Atari Lynx, released in 1989. It had colours, or something all bricky you can say. It was definitely ahead of its time, but then why did it only sell 3 million units? Well, the Lynx was originally developed by Epix as the handy game. However, later Atari came in to handle the production and marketing, while Epix would make the games. Epix later filed for bankruptcy, leaving Atari to handle everything. The Lynx has some good games in its library, Chips Challenge, Klax, Blue Lightning. The problem was its battery life and price. The Game Boy retailed for $90, while the Lynx costed you a whopping $200. So it makes sense why most people preferred the cheaper Game Boy, even if that was less powerful. What is the Game.com?
Well, a portable console, probably.
The Game.com, released by Tiger Electronics in September 1997, had some neat ideas for the time. The system could be connected to the internet and had a touchscreen. It also had 2 cartridge slots for double mediocrity. Well, the TurboExpress exists.
What?
It's a portable version of the TurboGrafx 16, for get this, $250, even raised to $300 at one point. That's more than 3 times the Game Boy's price. Yeah, it's one of the best hardware-wise, but that price is just too much for the time. Next up is the Sega Game Gear, and it too suffers from the price problem. It retailed for $150, again more than Nintendo's $90. However, the Game Gear still sold 10 million units and was more powerful than the Game Boy. It too had some good games, ports of Sonic and Rise Star, Land of Illusion, Super Off-Road, most games being ports of Mega Drive games. It had a colored screen and a backlight, making it much easier to see what you were doing. 5 years after the Game Gear came out, Sega just tried again and made the Nomad, which, instead of having exclusives, it only has Mega Drive ports. It even plays the same cartridges as the Sega Mega Drive does. But how does it look when you play Sonic 3 and Knuckles? Well, ridiculous, probably. Its battery life is horrible, so you can't play for longer than just a few hours without charging. Ahead of its time? Definitely, but the Nomad came out at a time that didn't help it in the long run. To be honest, I never heard of the Nomad before doing research on it for this video. The new Geo Pocket had a lifespan of 1 year, which shows how little it sold. It has 10 games. The Neo Geo Pocket Color was a little bit more successful, having 82 games and lasting 2 years, but the damage was already done. Bandai decided to step into the ring with the Wonderswan in 1999 for $40. Being even cheaper than the Game Boy, you'd think it sold well, but no. 3 million is more than some consoles on this list, but no. After 12 years of the Game Boy, Nintendo made the Game Boy Advance in 2001. It had a landscape form factor which made it much more comfortable than the bricks that came before it. It still didn't have a backlight though. Only after that, when we got the Game Boy Advance SP, standing for Special, came out in 2003, we finally got a backlight and a clamshell design. Nintendo made the backlight even better with a revised model. I don't own the revised model, so you just have to take their word for it. And then you have the Game Boy Micro. Why is this? Yeah, it's probably the most comfortable and definitely the most compact model, but it can only play Game Boy Advance games. No original Game Boy Color like the other versions. And it's even weirder when you consider that this system came out after the DS, which could also play GBA games. So why does this exist? Moving on to the games, we have an outstanding selection. There are so many games on this system, half of which are ports of Super Nintendo games. The Mario Advance series, the Donkey Kong Country ports, Metroid Zero Mission. I could go on for hours just talking about the SNES ports. But what exclusives did it have? Amazing ones. Sonic Advance, The Legend of Zelda the Minish Cap, Metroid Fusion. This console was also the first appearance of Advance Wars and Fire Emblem outside of Japan. The games on this system are amazing and really deserve more recognition than they get. The N-Gage was more of a phone than a game console. Yes, the N-Gage was designed as a combination MP3 player, cell phone, PDA, radio and gaming device. And since I don't own one, I have many questions relating to how I play the games on this thing. Like, what are the face buttons? Is it a number pad? Oh, by the way, you have to remove the battery to change the game cartridges. The DS. The wonderful dual-screen console that took the world by storm. Releasing November 2004, the DS had two screens, of which the bottom one had a touchscreen. It was also one of the first handhelds to have Wi-Fi connectivity built in. And as I said in my little Game Boy micro rant, the DS has Game Boy Advance support. That makes this not only the best way to play DS games, except maybe the 3DS, but also the best way to play your old Game Boy Advance games as well. And the games are so great. Mario 64 DS, Pokemon Black and White, Mario Kart DS, Fire Emblem, GTA Chinatown Wars, Bowser's Inside Story, New Super Mario Bros. Nowadays that last one may seem like an old pick. I mean, New Super Mario Bros. Games are everywhere, right? But this was back when the most recent 2D Mario game was Super Mario Land 2 on the original Game Boy more than a decade earlier. The DS had 3 revisions, being the DS Lite, which main difference with the original model being it looks better. Then you have the DSi, which introduced an eShop with its own DSiWare games but removed GBA backwards compatibility, and the DSi XL, which is just bigger. To be honest, I could sit here for ages just praising the DS, but we have more consoles scheduled, with the next one being the PSP. I never owned one.
PSP. It's like a nut you can play with outside.
I'm already interested. The PlayStation Portable, released 2005, was Sony's big foray into the portable console market, and it was way more powerful than the DS. But you know what that means? The system was also more expensive than the DS. But it still did very well nonetheless.
The PSP Go was a mistake. That's all.
The Gizmondo is a sequel to the Game.com, released March 2005 and was focused on music, films and texting alongside games, because that worked out so well for the N-Gage. And wouldn't you know it, Tiger Electronics went bankrupt just 1 year later. And then we have the console that was absolutely terrible until it wasn't. The Nintendo 3DS released March 2011 for $250 and was very underpowered compared to the competition. That made that no one bought one at launch. Luckily, Nintendo lowered the price 6 months later. Fun fact, the people who bought the 3DS before the price dropped received 10 free NES games and 10 free GBA games. And even funner fact, those GBA games were never re-released on Virtual Console, so these 10 GBA games are apparently worth $90 to Nintendo. Anyway, the 3DS's main feature was the 3D, that no games used. Speaking of the games, the 3DS has a lot of good games, not as great as a lineup as the DS, but still some great games. Animal Crossing New Leaf, Pokemon Sun and Moon, Fire Emblem Awakening, The Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds, and Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Yes, we finally got a sequel to the GameCube game. A disappointing sequel, but a sequel nonetheless. And I think the 3DS probably has the most revisions out of all consoles. You have the 3DS XL, that's bigger, the 2DS, that is cheaper and doesn't have 3D, the new 3DS, that's more powerful, the new 3DS XL, that's more powerful and bigger, and the new 2DS XL, that is useless. The Xperia Play. You can't talk about portable consoles without the Xperia Play, right? It's a phone. It's a phone with a controller that can play PlayStation games. The PlayStation Vita could have been great if Sony wasn't busy making the PS4 at the time. Putting this console into production at the time seems a bit weird to me. The priority should have been and was the development for the PlayStation 4. The system also doesn't have the most compelling games in my opinion. They're there, don't get me wrong, Persona 5 Golden, Spelunky, Velocity 2X, Rayman Origins. The problem is that the vast majority of games are ports of PS3 games. Not specifically that there's a problem with that. The GBA also mostly had ports, but the Vita's best games are all ports. Nvidia, go home, you're drunk. The Nvidia Shield Portable, released 2013, is a portable version of the Shield TV that did have some cool features. It runs Android, it can stream games from a PC, and was $300. See, Nintendo can get away with that, but Nvidia in 2013 couldn't. The system also lacked exclusives since it runs Android, and that is again Nintendo's biggest selling point at this price, and was even then. And that finally brings us to today, where the Nintendo Switch is the only choice for portable gaming. Released 2017 for $300, the Switch is incredible. It's a hybrid between a handheld and a home console that can play full-fledged AAA games. The system has a ton of exclusives that swept the nation. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Animal Crossing New Horizons, the list goes on. In addition to this, the Switch also has, overpriced, Wii U ports. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Rayman Legends Definitive Edition, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. God, these names are way too long. And the main thing the Switch is known for, AAA titles on the go. Crysis, Xenoblade, Bioshock, Borderlands, Doom, Ori, Dark Souls, Mortal Kombat, Bayonetta. What a lineup, and all of these can be played on the go. In recent years, a little less so since the Switch launched, people have been saying,
"Ooh, portable game consoles are dying, the mobile market is the place to be."
No, they're not. Mobile games do one thing well: short, bite-sized, simple games. You just can't have especially crafted experiences like Breath of the Wild, for example, on mobile. That wouldn't work. And that is why the Switch, and by extension portable game consoles, are doing better than ever nowadays. Being able to bring these big experiences to a platform they work on. Thanks for watching to the end. I hear rumours that if you like and subscribe, you'll get a cookie. I don't know about you, but I'm doing it right away.